Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another great edition of Jiva Live. We are coming to you on Facebook on the Jiva Juniors website. We have an action-packed, fun, thrilling, very educational show for you this evening with not just one, but two great parts. The first half of the show is going to be spent with none other than Women's National Team Assistant Coach, Erin Virture. And we'll get to her in just a second. Erin, thank you so much for being here this evening. And a discussion with you, the fans, on Facebook Live with her, myself, and William Doyle. William Doyle is the Chief Director of Sports Development for the Jiva region, and I myself am the Associate Director for the High Performance and Jiva region within the same program. The second part of the program, which I'm truly excited for, first time we're broadcasting this live, is we are announcing at the end of the show our AVCA Jiva Award winners for the region. We have 5 awards we will be giving out this evening. So stay tuned. It's going to be a doozy. Can't wait. Fingers crossed. Going to be awesome. Without further ado, I'm going to go to the man, the myth, the legend, just to say hello real fast. William Doyle, where are you? What are you up to? How's it keeping real in the Jiva world right now?
I'm isolated. I'm up here in the middle of nowhere, which is isolation enough, but then we're quarantined as well. My 3 major problems are, number 1 is deciding what time to change from my daytime pajamas to my nighttime pajamas. Number 2 is how to social distance from the refrigerator. And number 3 is pretty much remembering what number 3 is. So other than that, I'm doing fine.
Perfect.
I unfortunately I was supposed to be with Erin at a coaching summit out in Anaheim in May, and that didn't happen, which bumped me totally. So I'll just pick her brain today instead. But Erin, welcome. I'm very, very, very happy you're doing this, and hope you're doing well.
Yeah, thanks. I'm great. I'm so excited to be here. Yeah, we were really bummed when our coaching summit that we wanted to hold was put on pause, and we hope to bring that back, and as well as training in general with our national team at some point. And just like you know, everyone listening, we're on pause too. Our team has been spread all over the country. Our biggest focus was just getting them home from their overseas programs really safe, and so that was number 1 priority with our team. And we did that. We had athletes in Brazil and Turkey and Italy and all over the place, but to get them home, and so they're spread all over the United States right now. And we may start trying to get a little bit of weights in our facility, but we're looking through all the necessary precautions to make sure we can do so safely in the coming weeks. So that may be something that we look toward. And the focus now is our season has been either we had 2 big tournaments, the Volleyball Nations League, which was canceled for this year. And then, of course, everyone knows the Olympic Games were postponed till 1 year later in 2020. And so for us, it's just preparing for next year and preparing our athletes for their professional leagues, which they'll go to. Typically, they go to those leagues in the fall, but we may have some start to go there sooner so they can be properly amped up for their season. As it may be, it's a good thing to have about 4 to 8 weeks, depending on how long they've been without a volleyball and without weights and jumping and all those things, to make sure that their return to play is really responsible. And so they may return to their places early. They can do a lot with those teams, and so we're trying to get them as ready as possible to go do that.
No, thank you, Erin. And we talked pre-show, and I talked to Erin about, hey, what does the audience want to see? And she's already running away with it. We said you guys love stories. You love those anecdotes of getting the real feel for what's going on behind the scenes. What makes that Olympic athlete a little different, a little special, and what do they do for them? And the other thing we mentioned is, we as coaches, we want the things we can use in our gym. What are the feedback cues I can use? What are the things that I can use to make my players better? And you've already, within the first 5 minutes, hit on a great story and a little tidbit about one of those. So without further ado, for those of you that haven't read your email or looked at your social media or read your memo, we're here at a question and answer session on setting and setting technique. So if you have a question, you have an idea, you have something to say, put it in the comment section at Facebook. Erin Laban is behind the scenes on our social media site, looking in that, monitoring those, and we'll relay those to myself, Bill, and Erin here so we can answer those questions. We'll get to as many as we can, and we'll go from there. It's going to be a cool ride. I hope you stay for the whole thing. I know I'm going to learn something. I know Bill's going to learn something. I know Erin's going to learn something. It's going to be great. So, Erin, where do we go? How does the national team, learn how to develop a setter?
Yeah, no, I'm pumped to share this with you guys. So I'm going to share my screen in just a second and take you through some cues, some things that you guys can take away to work with your setters on. If there's happens to be a setter watching, hopefully they're thinking about how they're developing their game a little bit more, but these are some real things that our setters are working on. And I've already talked with John and Bill, and we'll break for plenty of time to ask questions. So feel free to absolutely ask those questions and make sure that I'm covering what you're interested in. So let me do this. Share this screen. Cool. Okay, so what I'll do here is present to you guys a few different technical portions. And of course, there's this whole body of work on things that we can talk about tactically when you're running an offense. But today we're going to mostly just talk about the skill of setting. And so some of the training philosophies that I want to talk about are, I love this quote by Stephen Covey, and it's the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. So for coaches in the audience, to me, this takes a lot of meaning and something I say a lot because there's any given setter in ours at the national team, the setters you have in your high schools and your clubs and region teams, they all have a lot of things to work on in any given training session or any given moment. So the really important thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. Today, we're working on your first step and read off of the pass. And just keep it there. Keep that focus on that main thing so you can actually dive and get better at that. If I am coaching and I have a setter that's struggling, maybe her focus is her first step, and we'll talk about that. But if I all of a sudden talk about her hands and then her eye work and then her footwork, all in that same training session, we're actually not going to get better at anything. So we want to be really narrow with what we're trying to get better at. The second philosophy is read, plan, execute. What I mean here is when we're training in a training gym, I want to have elements of a read and I want to have elements of a setter making a plan. So if I'm reading this pass is way beyond the 10-foot line, then I want to have a plan of how I might go and move and get there. And we'll talk through some of that. And then there's going to be an execution of I'm actually setting the ball. What I see a lot as I travel around and work with coaches, and I fell into this a lot in my career as well, is I see a lot of us just training the execute part. So we're just training the skill of actually setting, where we take away the opportunity to make a really good read, and we'll talk about that first, and then have a plan in place. So I encourage the coaches there to also have these elements of, when I'm training my setters, I'm always trying to go off a platform and not only a toss. I'm not always telling them exactly where I'm going to put that ball. So they have to plan for which type of footwork to go and get there, and then go through and execute the skill. So this is something that we're really about in our training philosophies in our gym with the women's national team. The third philosophy is simple and repeatable. So you'll see the things that I'm going to show you today are to try to simplify things as much as possible, so that we can repeat this. This is a really common philosophy in a lot of high-level coaches across a lot of sports. But if we are trying to be as consistent as we can, trying to simplify those things is really, really important. And I have this picture of the grape here, mostly so I remember to tell you guys that just like to make a fine wine, setting takes a ton of time. To nurture it and grow, and we want to make sure that we're putting the time in. So in the fundamentals, the things that we're going to talk about today, are reading the pass and how are we getting in a really good place to read it, especially in first ball situations. We have a lot of control. My handwork, where am I taking the ball, the point of contact, how am I releasing it? And things we talk about in our gym a lot. We're not going to get into these as much today. Location, tempo, and tactics are three we're not going to talk about as a lot today, but huge things for you guys as coaches to determine where those fit in your programs and how much time and why do you want to run the tempo and the location that you want to run. So those are going to be really, really important as you kind of determine how you want to run your system. So, and John, feel free to interrupt me as we go through. I'm okay with that. But I'll jump into the first of the three techniques that we're going to talk about. This is the prep and the eye work that goes along with it. I often use the pocket, and you can see here for the football fans in the audience, in our pocket for volleyball and a setter, if we're in first ball, it's us just where we are when we're running to the net, when we have an entry in serve receive. And for our perfect situation, for us, it's just right of center, about 3 feet off the net. And so what we're going to talk about in this first clip is we want to be stopped and we want to be facing the passer and we want to be ready to move and in a really good position. And I'll show an example. And the reason for this, guys, is as we watch these examples, is doing this, we'll get the best read on the pass as possible. And with the whole goal of making sure that we're balanced and moving really efficiently to the ball. So here you can see this is being prepped in the pocket. She's facing the passer. She's stopped. Her eyes are on the platform of Jordan Larson, number 10 here. This is Micah Hancock. And her elbows and knees are bent. Okay, so getting there is a lot. There's a lot of things and we can have a whole session of the entry and the footwork involved in that. But in these examples, you'll see a couple of our setters work through just being stopped and getting the eyes as soon as possible to the passer. And we'll see each clip a couple times in slow motion, regular motion, so that you guys can really see how quickly we get into that stopped position.
Right, Erin. So 2 things I've already gotten questions on, and myself noticed one thing is you talked about facing the pass.
Yeah.
I see a lot of young coaches that will say facing the pass, or young players or even older players think facing the pass is only with their eyes or with their face, and they don't realize the whole body posture. Can you break that down and explain that, especially when it comes to like the left hip and the left foot and what that means?
Yeah, for sure. I want us to be fully engaged on them. So we'll see different examples as I play through this video, but I'd like my hips, my feet, my body to be facing the passer, not just my head. Especially when the ball goes, we'll see some examples of when it goes over to the right back, when it's in zone 1. That's one of the most important places for me to be really engaged. Instead of watching that ball come over my shoulder, I can actually be in a position to actually move toward it and be open to the pass. You will see too, with the face, with the head, as soon as I know that that ball isn't going to be trickling on the net, I want to get my eyes as soon as possible, my eyes and body engaged on where the next actor on the ball is going to be. In this case, the passer. So you can see Carly Lloyd here, as that ball crosses, she sees it's not a flat, threatening serve to hit the net. Let's see how fast she gets her eyes to that passer. Before that ball crosses the net, she's already open and squaring on Kim Hill as her passer and the platform that she's going to pass with. So here you see a good example going to zone 1, and you can see Micah Hancock, number 1, our setter. She's completely open and facing Kim. She's not closing her back off, anything like that, but she's got her whole back to the net, not trying to be on any kind of 45 or 90 degree angle. She's open and ready to move left and ready to move right. What we see often from passers in this zone, where Kim Hill's at, number 15, is that is the place where they often miss to the right, closer to the right sideline. So we want to make sure that's a big part of why we get to the right, closer to the right sideline. In this position where Lauren's at, I would love for her to be a little closer to the right sideline But what I love about this clip is I will take someone who's stopped over someone who's in the best position all day. So Lauren gets stopped before the pass happens. And granted, if she could get stopped 2 steps to her right, she'd be in a little better position to have the ball in front of her.
Do you find that a lot, especially coming out of position, 3 or 4, that it's a couple more steps, especially at a higher level, a quicker serve? Do you find that tends to be, something that a lot of setters do like her, is they may not get all the way over to that center right in rotation 3 and 4?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we gotta be really, really efficient with our entry footwork there. And that's not something I'll cover today, but you can see Lauren, she just is sprinting. With a young setter, I would just say, we just gotta sprint there and get stopped and face. And that's a really, we gotta work. This cannot be a passive move, as it's something, we're seeing some of the best, fastest servers in the world. And for that, we're working really, really hard in setter training and these entries to make sure that we can be in a really good spot and pushing ourselves and having the server serve even shorter so we have less time between the hand contact and the passer. That is something, but if we can get realistic opportunities in practice for our setters to work on this, the more balanced they are, guys, the better they're going to be moving from the pocket. Do you have any other questions about that prep?
So this is, as far as prep goes, we have a footwork question already. I guess just in general, a question we also got was, do you as a whole national team, either as a team, as both sides, or all 3, including the Paralympic side, do you guys try your best to use the same feedback terms, the same vernacular, or does every coach have their own different phrases and styles, or does the offense have their style and the defense has their style, or do you try to be simplified across the board? What is your philosophy as a group on that?
Great. So I can speak for our women's national team. We have very similar philosophies on coaching and teaching the game of volleyball to our men's national team and John. But our staff works really hard to be very consistent with what our feedback is and how we're going to deliver that at practice. So for example, if I'm working, and I do work with our setters, and that's a really specific part for me at practice, and our middle attackers. And so those 2 positions, if they're getting feedback on those types of skills, a lot of that feedback's coming from me. But it's really important that Luca and Tama, who are our other assistants, and then Karch, our head coach, that they understand what Jordan Poulter, one of our setters, her focus for that day. So what we do is we have a Google sheet, like an Excel document that has what each person's focus is for that day in what skill. So a setter will have a setting focus, and usually we'll have 1 or 2 others. Though of course there's serving, blocking, defense, setting, all these things that they need to get better at. But if in one day we're gonna have some multi-discipline approaches to them, so more than 1 coach is gonna be coaching them, we know that. So we wanna be really specific and targeted with what that is. Another example of a position that's not gonna be mine that I would give feedback in is, for example, a libero, who maybe is working on holding her angle on a pass. Maybe that is, I know the term and what Megan Courtney might be working on in that scenario, and Tama will be her primary coach coaching that and really having eyes on every rep she's gonna have. But for me, my whole goal in that is to catch her doing it right, to encourage her, and make sure that this is a big one, guys, make sure that I don't overload her by seeing something that she's not working on that day and it's not the main thing for her, and now I'm talking to her about her shuffle step and Tama's trying to make gains with her on her angle. So we can for sure get that wrong a lot. Our staff works really hard. Our men's staff, I know, has a really similar organizational tool that they use as almost a cheat sheet that their coaches will bring to practice and talk about of what are each of their guys working on. I actually haven't spoke to Bill Hammer and about what they're doing with the women's sitting team, or Greg with the men and the sitting capacities. But I would imagine there's a lot of really important feedback buckets that we want to be in.
Yeah, no, I like that idea about, just, like basic preparation, don't overload players, make sure the feedback is similar and, don't step on each other's toes, especially during practice time. If you
Yep.
have to do it after the fact, not during the practice.
Yeah, for sure. It's really, really important. I mean, we could talk a lot about feedback and how much and how little and all those kind of things, but those are really, whoever asked that question, that's just such a good thing to be thinking about.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's what we got right now, and we'll keep going. So
Cool. Great. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about hands, and footwork is where I usually get my money's worth of questions. So we'll get there. We'll get there soon. So for handwork, and what we're talking about, guys, here is what are my hands doing basically when I'm touching the ball? That's what we're going to look at. I want our setters to be high and open. So where they touch the ball is high. It's very relative to who they are. We'll see a couple of different setters here. If you're coaching a 12 setter, that may be a little closer to their forehead. Jordan Poulter, I don't know if I have a video example of her, but she takes the ball extremely high. She's really, really strong through her frame. But the key there, guys, is can that be relative so that you can set everybody and be in a really neutral spot? By open, and I'll show some examples so I can be really clear on this, but open means where my palms are finishing. I want my fingers up versus my fingers going down. And so my palms would be open towards zone 4 or our outside hitter. And then I'm really simply just want to extend through my elbows. So I'll take us through some video so we can see what exactly I'm talking about here. So we should see high and open. So where they're taking the ball nice and high, and this will pause here so we can watch it. So this is a good example of, you can see her fingers while they're blurry. You can see their fingers are facing up and not coming on top of the ball. And then the elbows get fully extended. And she takes the ball at a high point and she finishes higher. So high to high is starting at a high point and finishing at a higher point. And so those are some very, very simple elements that we're going to work on with our setters. And we'll see some different setters. That was Carly Lloyd. This is Micah Hancock. These are from last summer. And you can see here, if you watch it in slow motion, and we'll pause it, I think it pauses, you can see the full extension. But after release, it's really common for those elbows to go back into a bend. And so some of the best setters in the world, you'll see a bend come back. That's a real natural recoil to happen. But extending through, that's what's going to offer us our speed. It's going to allow us to be really consistent with that finish. As a young setter, I would teach our young setters, and I'd have them at practice actually hold their elbows out straight and hold that finish a little longer. You can see Carly Lloyd here on a back set does a really good job with this high open finish in her handwork. This is one that's going straight overhead, though we'll see examples where we go over the shoulder as well. But all the way through these elbows, the open is then where you'll see, you could see the palms are open to where she wants to set, which is going behind overhead in this example. So she's got her hands going up, starts in a really neutral spot. And so these are really simple mechanics that even our setters in our gym right now, we have 3. They all work on their handwork a lot, especially when we get in the gym. At the first thing when we get in the gym is going to probably be on handwork. As we're getting to know the ball again, we're going to be talking about that. Can I deliver the ball in a really consistent way? Really simple. How I arrive there, of course, the footwork. Am I getting a good read? All those things are going to help us have really good handwork. But just like when you're a passer and you're touching the ball with your platform, when you're touching the ball with the hands, we can have really, really good handwork. Here you can see Carly is very off balanced and still having a really nice finish. So when all things kind of go poorly, we can still have high to high. She's taking this ball above her head and finishing at a higher point and being able to finish nice and open. So when all things go hard, as we aren't going to get great passes all the time, can we remain in system or put a good ball up when we're out of system so that we can be as good as we can with our hands? But that's
and one of the things, cool. So one of the things I often notice with handwork, and even at the higher levels, but they're so quick, they tend to get away with it more, is when they back set, we let the ball go behind us a little bit or over our head. Is that something you work on your players with, even at a national level, or do you just, they're moving so fast that they can get away going back to that back pin and they don't have to worry about it? Because I find with my younger kids, if they're back setting, that ball, all of a sudden, it's now changed their frame from being in front of their eyes to now their head goes back, and they set that up a little bit too early. Is that something you work on with your players?
Yeah, we talk about it all the time, John. It's a good question. The biggest thing that we talk about is can we take the ball in a really consistent neutral place, and that's what you're talking about. If I'm making the decision to go back and back set early, the tendency might be to take the ball behind my head, or have really low hands when I may be setting in front. And so when you're training, and sometimes video video delay is really helpful in the training, is to be able to watch this one and then maybe see it on an iPad, or set maybe 3 and then go look on an iPad or a phone if a coach has that. But sometimes that's really helpful. Another tool I might do is right before the setter touches, then I'm calling out what they should set. So they have to be in a really neutral spot until I say maybe forward or back, and then they have to make that choice. Setters are often, I think this is where we get in when we're just executing over and over and over, and there's no planning in place. If I was to say, okay, I'm just going to toss to you, John, and you can set 50 back sets in a row. Well, you can imagine that starts to look really like a back set all the time. So by adding in the randomness and adding in a little bit of, we're not in this perfect situation all the time, a rep over and over. Now we're starting to add in some variety of elements that are going to make your setters be a little bit more random or neutral with how they're delivering that ball too.
Cool. Another great question from the audience. I think this question can kind of go into every facet of this. So, I'm a coach. I have a player who's at home during this pandemic situation. They can't do a whole lot. They're probably by themselves. Maybe if they're lucky with a brother and sister, but probably by themselves. They might have a ball at home, maybe a wall, maybe not. What's something in each of these facets they can do to get better with their hands, their feet, their eye work, just in general as a player, that they can do at home right now, or things they can focus on right now? And this person goes even further, going, my parents know nothing, so I need to do this all by myself.
I love it. Well, I love that you're listening to this. This is one way to get better, is to be thinking through these a little bit. And so with the eye work, unfortunately with eye work, just looking as we go back, you need to have something to look at. But what you can do is, even if you have like a driveway or something where it's safe to run on, you can just be working and pretending you're in rotation 4 and working on that move and getting to that spot, and just turn and face a fictitious tree or something that might be your passer. And so just being able to work on that and kind of playing with your mind as if that tree is going to pass to you. But eye work is going to be best done when you're playing and you have a passer there, a digger. Hand work, best if you have a volleyball, but really any kind of ball. I know when I played for Jenny Longping on the national team like 100 years ago, she would have me set with a basketball quite often. I think it's best if something is the same shape as a volleyball. Basketball is obviously a little bigger, but if you have a ball, a soccer ball, volleyball, basketball, any kind of ball, you can be working on this release in a lot of different ways. If you're going to be setting against a wall or something, I would encourage you to still have, like maybe get the ball either tossed to you or tossed from yourself, where you have to turn. It's pretty rare that the ball is passed to us and we set back the same direction. So if I'm just setting against the wall and I'm never changing the orientation of my body, that just becomes pretty robotic and not something that we do a lot as setters. We often get the ball maybe from off the net where our passers and diggers might be, and then now we're getting square to the left side of the net to then set forward or backward. And so I would encourage you, even if you're just tossing to yourself, to toss to yourself and then take a left, right, and we'll talk about some footwork, and then set against that wall. And there you can work on those exact same principles of extend the elbows, make sure your hands start high and finish high. And then footwork is of course something that you can just run around and do all day. Running around the neighborhood, you could be working on your left, right, left and footwork patterns. And while of course those are going to be best done with a ball, off a pass, in those kind of situations, all sorts of elements that you can do with those as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I just remember, you brought up two of my memories. Like, I remember the old school umbrella drill, go to target and then, pick a cone. You don't even need a ball, just go through reps like that.
Yeah.
And I remember learning how to approach as a kid, literally walking through my high school going left, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, just in my head all day. And you're right. You just, do that. Even sitting down, in school or at your desk while you're, doing your schoolwork right now, as a setter, underneath your desk, just boom, boom, with your footwork, left, right, with your footwork again and again. And that little stuff, sets your mind right. I think that stuff definitely works without a doubt. So,
yeah.
So Erin, what do we have next here? We did prep, we did a little handwork. Are we going on to the feet now?
We're going to talk about some footwork.
All right.
Cool. Okay, so the things we're going to see in these videos is, and it's going to go in this order, and we'll talk about the first step. So once we've done a really good job getting in our prep, and a lot of these examples, guys, are going to come from first ball, though we'll see a few from transition. That's a 50% of our game. It's so important. But in the effort to not spend the entire night of watching Facebook with you guys in your time, we're just going to do a lot of first ball footwork. So we want to step in the direction of the ball. So if the ball is to my left, I'm going to step to my left. If the ball is to my right, I'm going to step to my right. We'll see some examples. We want to be as efficient as possible when we move to the ball. This is going to separate someone. I sometimes hear when we talk about young setters, oh, she's just not very quick to the ball. Well, what I see when I watch a lot of young setters is we're just not very efficient yet. We haven't learned to read as well. There's some, for sure, motor mechanics that we can get better at, just moving in general. But there's a lot of things that coaches we can do to help the efficiency of those movements, to make sure we're actually moving in the direction that we want to go and not zigzagging there or making kind of a fork in the road. We're going to talk about finishing off the right foot a lot, whether that's off 2 feet or 1 foot. And then we'll talk about a pivot move. Some might call it a spin move. So we'll see a lot of that. So this is a little longer video, so feel free as we kind of go through some of it to pop in with any kind of questions you have. So we'll first talk about the first step. Again, I mentioned that we want this to be in the direction of the ball or the pass. And so you can see there'll be some prep moves in here, making sure we're in a really good prep, and then stepping towards the pass. So I want the eyes just to remain there. Of course, if you wanted to watch more handwork or something, feel free to do so. But there's really good examples in here of passes that are putting our setters in different areas of the court, and we're stepping toward that pass, and the movement of the body of the setter is just all going one direction. This is going to be so big if we get a really good read. So this pass moves our setter to her left. You can see she steps first with her left foot and then works with her right to get square.
Mm-hmm. So two of the things that are already coming to my mind and some of our viewers are, just to be exact, they are stopped and steady until after the contact of serve receive, or if they see something that's a little amiss with the platform, can they make a read before, or you want them to actually see that contact?
I want them to see that contact. So you can even see right here as I pause it, Kayla Banworth is the passer there in the Rio Olympics, and in Carly Lloyd's the setter. Carly's in a really good prepped position. She's getting all the information that she can. And what might happen, and it for sure happens at our level all the time, is if we see someone, let's say like Kayla, this ball is pushing her deep, but she does an awesome job trying to adjust with this platform. So passers have a job to do. If the ball gets them out of position, their job is to work to fight that off and try to put the best pass that they can. And so I want to allow the passer to be able to do their job before the setter does theirs. I think you can be making plans. So we're reading and we're making a plan. And then right as that passer touches the ball, now it's time to execute. And so I don't want to see, I want to see the prep for that and maybe in the planning mode, but I don't want to see our setters starting to move off the net or go somewhere where they don't know yet where that ball is going to go.
Cool. And the other question we have is, Erin, my setter has what we'll call either a negative step or a rocker step or a rebalancing step. How do I break them out of that bad habit instead of going into the direction of the ball right away?
Yeah.
Any ideas on that one?
No, it's a really good question. And we talk about this on our staff a lot. There may be sometimes when you're looking to go fast anywhere, if I was just to jump out of this chair and start running somewhere, I may have some negative movement in that. Now, how much is it affecting my forward movement is something you'll have to assess. But when you're starting to move fast, that may happen where the foot goes back. We see that with blockers. We see that with transition approach because we're trying to run and turn and go fast. But we see that sometimes where that negative step goes one way when I'm trying to go the other way. And I think unless it's really prohibiting your movement, we'll probably see some of these examples in here where there may be a little bit of a hesitant step before I actually get going. But I think that if it's totally impacting the movement, that's to me just the read. Getting the eyes there better. We're just reading something that's probably not happening if I'm going like left when I should be going right. But let's watch through it and I bet we'll see something. So even there, Carly moved her right foot a little bit before her left in this scenario. I think it will play again. No, that one won't, but we'll see some of those examples. Here we're gonna see just your very, very basic left-right footwork. So I'm off 2 feet. What I want you guys to know is, or notice, is these setters, these examples are getting really, really balanced under the ball. I have a left and then I have a right, and I'm making sure my right's in front of my left a little bit so I can be as balanced as possible. It doesn't matter if you're right-handed or left-handed. We want to have this cadence to the ball. And that's a really great example of the timing of this step. Right before I jump, I'm under it as early as I can be, and then stepping with the right allows me to jump. And again, a really nice first step in that example. These are all really good passes. Obviously, if we're just doing a 2-step, things are really, really good. So easy money on these type of passes. We can have that all day. And that first step, that left of the left right is going to, of course, go in the direction of the pass of the ball.
Cool. All right, Erin, another question we have that kind of goes along with where we are now is, as far as many of our coaches are at the youth development level, some as young as 8, 9, 10, and all the way through high school. Some of our listeners are going to be collegiate and beyond, international. But as far as youth development goes, do you have your kids jump setting, getting up in the air right away? What are your first couple cues to develop a new developing setter that has never set before? What are you starting on first?
Yeah, honestly, all of these elements I have taught at all the different levels. I think jump setting is something that actually can really help with the power for your athletes as they're young and they're not as strong yet. That's definitely something that's going to help with them. Their range of how they're going to do that is going to be limited. So if they're right at the net, or things that are really good passes, I would encourage them to attempt some of that jumping. And you'll see we'll do some 1-foot things as well. And I would do things off 1 foot and things off 2 feet, and still teach them that. The handwork, what the difference will be in the handwork, and I mentioned it earlier, is just that the hands will probably be a lot closer to the head. We're not going to be taking the ball as high. And the reason for that is then we have a bigger elbow extension, as I'm going to be a little less strong depending on the level and how you go. We have some of our setters that change that height of where they take the ball based on what their body is able to do. And so I would encourage you to look at that for your setters and what do they need as far as where they start with that ball. What I see often with young setters with their hands work is they tend to start too high. And then as that ball comes into their hands, they drop their hands and then they go back out. And that really takes away a lot of the power for their finish. So I would want to start a little closer to my head and then be able to make one move with my elbows going out. Going to the net and making sure you're stopped and facing the passer, that's something I think we don't do when I'm watching a lot of youth volleyball, college volleyball, national volleyball. It's not done at this amazing level. So I would encourage setters and coaches to really look at that at an early age. Imagine if that 10-year-old is able to be getting their eyes on the right thing, they're going to be seeing platforms for years before they're able to go and compete in a collegiate program or national team program. And so that would be my dream, is we can just get a little better there with their eyes too, and teaching them what they should be looking at.
Awesome. Another question from Facebook right now. I have a young lefty that I think I should really develop as a setter. A little bit of a loaded question. Should she be a setter rather than another position because she's lefty? And what things can she do that a righty can? Or, we should be teaching all kids in a sense to set?
Yeah. No, without knowing necessarily her level in the other things, I don't think handedness is something that I would put in the top factors of a great setter. We have, of the 3 setters we have on our team right now, with Lauren Carlini, Micah Hancock, and Jordan Poulter, one of the 3 is left-handed. Micah Hancock is left-handed, and she does have the ability to go and swing. She does a nice job dumping. Lauren and Jordan are also pretty good at going up and being aggressive. So that may depend on if you want someone to maybe turn and swing and you want to teach her that tool, that can for sure be a nice toolkit for someone with a left hand to go and do that really well. What Micah's finding is the higher her level goes, the harder it is to score with that element. But she's still very good at it. And so that range of when she can do that is a little less than when she was in college, for example, for us. But I would say if you think you have someone on your team that has the ability to be a really nice setter, and especially looking at some of the intangibles they may want or you may want in your different positions, then I would say you can train her there. Maybe she's also working on her attacking as well. That certainly will help her be a more rounded player, well-rounded player.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. All right. So getting back to our cadence and our footwork. So
yeah.
We're next.
For sure. Let me play this here. Okay, so we're going to look a little bit at the pivot. And this is a move off one foot. So it's just off of the right foot. And we're going to use this mostly when we are not able to get stopped. So this example here, we're on the run and we want to continually be on the run without stopping our momentum super fast. Or if we want to generate a lot of speed with our set, this is one way to do it, which we can often see us doing this as a long ball. It helps us use our body to set the ball. And there's all sorts of mechanics that we can talk about the pivot, but I just wanted to put it out as something that we do a lot in our gym. You can see a couple elements here. One is we're driving the right foot underneath the ball. We're trying to get the right foot as much underneath the ball. This is a great example of finishing towards your attacker. So this is Lauren Carlini, but she finishes and her body is facing where she wants that ball to go. We can see the front of her jersey towards left front. That's what we want. We want to finish where we want that ball to go.
Yep. I do find from my experience, Erin, that
yeah.
is a very difficult move to teach young setters because it's counterintuitive from basketball. Meaning in basketball, they are taught right knee up, and setters, then you go and switch set on them, and it becomes a little difficult, especially at the younger ages, a righty left layup and basketball is right knee. So when you're crossing between sports at a young age, now that pivot move becomes most of the time a left knee. If I have
this will be like the layup on the left side of the basket.
I agree. Yeah, a lefty layup. Teach them how to do the lefty layup. I agree. Now, is that something you have to deal with in the past, or if I do have a player that's going right knee up, is that something I'm going to want to fix, or do I let them go? Or
yeah, no, I think in this situation, you do want to work with that. We want to be off our right and jumping off the right. So that would be the left knee would be getting us around. Very different than if I was a slide attacker on my right leg would be going up and I'm jumping off of my left foot. So yeah, you're exactly right. If you have a basketball player, this would for sure be a layup on the right side of the basket with my right hand or a left side of the basket with my left hand. That's how I was taught, though it was a very, very long time ago. But this would be a move. You're right. You'd have to work with them on, get them comfortable with this movement, the timing of this movement, when to use this type of footwork, and how to use it as well, and what that range would be. The young setters that I've worked with, sometimes this does help, but what happens, the more, like we talked about at the beginning, the more complex the movement, and this is more complex than just being off 2 feet, the harder it is to repeat, the more time we have to be training it. And so we work on this move quite a bit in practice, and making sure that, like I said, the finish is so big that we're end up square, we're finishing really strong, and facing where we want the ball to go.
Right.
And I wanted to.
It has all to do with just creating torque and power. That's why you would go off of the one leg versus the other and getting the ball delivered properly.
Yep, exactly. And for us, it's that part of, I'm not able to stop and be off 2, but I can be more balanced if I'm jumping off 1 and running off 1, where I don't have to slow down. I can actually run and pivot through that ball. But you'll see examples here too of some of our men. This is Micah Christensen, where this pass is just a little bit lower, where he doesn't have time to be stopped and off 2. And it just made more sense for him to just be really simple and there off of 1 foot. We'll see another example of one of our, the Brazilian setter who does this really well as well for the men, right here. So first thing you can notice, he's really open to the digger, which is awesome. And the next thing is this pass is behind him. So for him to get square, it's way easier for him to be off of 1 foot. And I love that example, because that's a really hard thing to be square and let that ball, but now he can actually see it and see his attacker as he goes and finishes through.
I got a quick question. When do you actually teach driving that left knee?
Yeah, we want that knee to come up. We don't want our legs to be straight out. We want that because it's going to help us get square. Really, at the end of the day, we want our body to be oriented where we want to be setting the ball. And so there's a lot of biomechanics that we could probably get into there, but we want to, that knee coming up and around is going to help us, and staying tight to my body. It's going to help me move faster through that motion. And it's also going to help me get square, is what, at the end of the day, what I want. And a really simple way to think through that, sorry to cut you off, but a simple way to think through that is, if we want something to happen fast, we want to keep it fairly tight to our body. If you were to watch a figure skater, for example, when they want to move fast, they keep their arms in tight and they spin around. But once they want to slow, everything gets a little wider. Their hands go out, their legs go out. They're spinning off one leg, the other one's kind of off to the side to slow their momentum down. So we often see sometimes with a pivot move, this other leg, this left leg, maybe kicking out straight into the side. That's actually going to slow you down. We want to keep things tight. The knee comes up, it's tight to the body so that we can be moving in a pretty tight fashion around this ball.
So you do actually teach that and emphasize it as a dynamic move.
Yeah. Yep. This is a very aggressive move, not as much a passive setting move.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Ooh, sorry, that volume. Sorry, the volume is really loud in this clip. But we'll watch just one more. Cool. So sorry, yeah, sorry for the noise. That gym was super loud. Apparently, I didn't turn the noise off.
We actually didn't hear it on your side, so you're good.
Okay, good. Yeah, it was like the loud crowd on my side. So there's a ton of time we can spend on that, I know, but I do want to get to questions you have about footwork and then any kind of teaching tools. And I know we're getting close to the time and we have more, we have awards to give out in the ladder. So we can talk more about footwork, John, or I can give you some teaching tools and then just open it up for any kind of questions.
I think we hit all the footwork questions that we had.
Cool.
The only other question we've gotten so far that I have on the radar right now is you alluded to it before with the idea of randomness in practice. And then you talked also about, the perfect pass or the perfect toss. And these are, perfect, isolated situations. In your practice with setters or with the team in general, how much of your practice do you spend working in system versus out of system?
Let's see. So in setter training, we spend probably about 10 to 12 minutes a day in what we might look at as just getting some reps. Usually that's with our libros passing and our blockers reading. So we have
maybe not a time as minutes, but maybe more as a percentage too.
Okay, yeah. So that's going to be like 2% of the time. So really small percent of like what we would look at as maybe a little more blocked. We're working as we're getting warm. That's usually something at the early part of practice in a tutoring session. That's going to be more often than not very in system. As it's before maybe our servers get really ramped up, the passers are working on some techniques, and our setters are working on getting a really nice read there. And as for our blockers, it's really important that they're trying to get a read when we or other teams are in system. And so that's one of the very first elements of practice. Once we get into any type of attack training, we spend, let's see, I would say it's very, very close to 50-50 in and out of system. A really good match for us is about 60% of the time we're in system. That's on first ball only. And that's an awesome match.
Right. And keep in mind, audience, we're talking about the best players in the world are in system 60% of the time. So on the youth level, probably a lot less.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting because as you scale the passing, you also scale the serving.
Yep.
And so I think that I actually would love to learn more and dive into all the different data elements at every level. But even looking in college, in the college, I coached in the Big Ten for a long time. And that was fairly similar. We actually probably were in system more often than the national team level, as the serving wasn't quite as tough, but the passing was a nice level passer in that league. And youth, I think it's going to fluctuate in a really big way as well. So I think that's going to be really important to look at in a match. How often is your team in and out of system, in transition versus in first ball, and to tailor your training to look like that.
Yep, I like that idea.
Yeah, if we only worked on first ball attacking and never transition attacking, we would be missing for us about 50% of the game. And so I think that's going to be really important for whatever level you fall at to really know what that looks like.
Cool. We just got another question in and then we'll get to the teaching tools.
Cool.
So kind of 2 or 3 questions in one. I'm a setter. I want to get better at quote unquote dumping or setting over on 2. What dumping moves should I have? What ones work best? And how do I practice something like that on my own?
Awesome. Cool question. And I love that they're coming from setters. Yeah, we haven't hit on dumping at all here. But I think 2 places to think about for dumping is, again, it's going to be really dependent on what kind of defense you're going to play against. But what I see, especially in the levels I've coached the most, are either at the youth or junior national team level, college, and then national team, is forward, and that's with the left or the right hand, either one, but forward towards the T, which is like the 10-foot line and the sideline. So forward in there, it would be in front of usually the right back defender, depending on where they're set up. A lot of times they set up maybe 5 feet in and 5 feet behind the 10-foot line at a lot of levels that I've seen. So into that space is a really hard ball to defend. If, for example, your right back defender is a little bit closer to that area, then right into the middle of the court. So I would, more often than not, you're probably going with the left hand, but some can go with the right hand, right into the middle of the court. Some might call it the donut, I think is, or the campfire. I think I've heard that before too. So like right in the middle of the court, where if they're in a base defense, like we might see with left and right back and middle back or middle, depending on how deep that person is in middle back. Sometimes right in the middle of the court is an awesome spot. But your coaches can help you with that. They can help you with what's a common defense you might face and where might be, like, if you were going to pick 1 or 2 spots to try to go and nail. Another thing I would think about, if once you get back on the court, is trying to dump in situations when you're on the move too. So when you're moving forward along the net, and maybe between blockers, or maybe you're facing the right side blocker, or when you're moving backward along the net. Those are really good times to also consider versus when things are all great and the middle blocker is just salivating, waiting for you to block your dump.
Any ideas as far as, I'm at home right now, how can I work on that technique? Maybe I can use like a clothesline, or, set up a couple of things to try to hit. And
yeah.
Any ideas on situational stuff right now?
Yeah, I think a clothesline is a really good example. Yeah, just anything kind of between either your house and a tree or something. Honestly, just working on the motion and just going high over your head, throwing something, maybe even a tennis ball if you don't have a volleyball, throwing a towel over something, but just working on the motion of where you want to throw that ball. And it's more of a throw motion than a spike or an attacker might face, especially if you're looking to just dump versus attack. So just anything that you can go and work on a throw, I think is a really good exercise to do at home.
I love that idea. You don't even need a volleyball. Go get a towel and just practice, rub it up in a ball or a tennis ball and just chuck it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So, and again, I know we said we wanted to try to keep the show under an hour, but so far we're getting good feedback. The show's been great. So don't fret on that. Things are so good. But I think we need to start getting to teaching tools.
Cool. Yeah, we'll go through a few of these. And so a few teaching tools is feedback, and we've covered this quite a bit, but being as specific and consistent as we can be, and keeping the main thing. I can't emphasize that enough. Coaches, we have to be really organized. Our players are going to want to work on 10 things at one time. I know mine do. Our women's national team's athletes are some of the best in the world, and they can be overloaded. So if you scale that back to someone who's 14 or in that range, if a 32-year-old Jordan Larson can get overloaded with too much feedback, so can your daughter or your high school athlete or your club athlete. And so in that, I really think that that's a big thing to take away and to think about how much feedback we're giving. Something that we'll often do in our gym is give homework or quizzes. So one example might be if I had video of my athletes, and let's say we were talking about the prep, just being stopped before the passer. What I might do is clip up, let's say 10 examples of a prepped in the pocket of my setter. And it might be, okay, Sarah, some setter that you work with, here's 10 examples of you running to the net. And the homework would be at the end, you tell me clip 1 through 10, was I stopped and facing? yes or no. And I just write that in, and that's the homework I might turn in. And it just gets our eyes looking for the right thing when we're watching film. And so these are types of videos that I would send our athletes when they're overseas. We're not with our athletes very much. So when they are training in Italy, before they come into our USA gym, our athletes are our youth national team athletes, for example, they'll receive something like this prior to coming to train with the youth national team for USA, junior national team, same thing. And so we're sending these little things to direct our eyes to look at the right thing. Game plan recap is a really important thing to look at. So let's say, and for sure at our level, but if you have any kind of scouting report or any kind of game plan that you go into, let's say your coach asked you to set your middles 20% of the offense tonight. That's not something I usually ask, but that could be something. But looking at, or if you wanted to try to, we didn't talk about a lot of tactics, so I don't want to get too confusing, but if you wanted to try to overload a certain blocker, looking at that and actually, did you do this? And did you, looking at that after the fact, we do that with our setters a ton. How did we do with the game plan? Did we execute it? Did we move away from it, and why against Bulgaria, whoever it might be? Another really interesting element is the match or the week recap. So this is more just how did we do systems wise, technique wise, a little less about tactics in this type of recap, but this may be after a week of practice. Something that Karch will do is he'll ask me as our offensive coordinator to come up with for the next week, maybe one thing we did really well last week and one thing that we want to improve on that we want to work on this week. And so each Monday, if we had a full week of practice, each Monday we might watch 5 minutes of an offensive focused video, something we did well last week, something we want to focus on this week. And that could be a whole range of things offensively. Luca will put together a defensive one, and they'll be really short. I would encourage you to keep it less than 5 minutes. And then Karch may have a serving focus and Tama may have a passing focus. And so we'll have a couple focuses. We'll set the groundwork for what we want to achieve that week. So it's a little bit of a recap and a debrief, but then it's also forward thinking. The concepts check is more if I have a, let's say I want to have a situation that I give my athletes, I may show them some video and see if they can understand a lot of that might be tactically. What might you do in this situation? And then I just wait for the response and listen to what my athletes might consider doing strategically in that type of situation. And so those are just a few ways to kind of go through and be able to kind of get layers beyond what we're teaching. So that's a lot, but that's what I have on setting.
All right, I have a few more questions for the audience, and there's some these. I like these a lot. All right, so first one. Erin, most of our coaches in this region and even at the high school level throughout the entire country, club level throughout the entire country, they might get, 2 or 3 2-hour practices a week. Most of the time, they only have one court. What would you suggest they devote to setter training as a position? Do you tell your setters to go to the wall? Do you tell your setters, okay, we got half the court, for 15 minutes, and the rest of the team is going to use just half a court? You got 2 hours. What can you do as a club coach or a developing coach, within a high school program?
Yeah. So something I would encourage the coaches with those kind of constraints to think about is how can you get a lot of individual focused training done in one space? When we travel overseas, our team most often has one court, and we have 14 players usually that we travel with. So some of you may have more, some less. So we do all sorts of things on one court. For example, with serve receive, Something we do quite often is split the court halfway. We have passers on one side and we're just serving down the line. So we're just getting some serving down the line. So maybe it's servers serving down this line, servers serving down that line on opposite sides of the court. And then setters are able to get some reps there, just reps off the passers as we're getting warm. And then the servers will go cross. And then we'll go down the other line. And so passers will pass and right back, then passers will pass and left back. And then we'll go the other direction cross. And so setters our setters and plus our non-setters will get to set in those activities as well. So opposites aren't just serving, they're getting some setting reps. So our setters can be serving. So that's a lot of things that can happen on one court. Another activity we'll do a ton when we're on one court is we'll have passers, whether that's outsides or libros. We'll have passers ready to pass. We'll have servers serving, and hopefully that's some athletes just working on their arm. It could also be a coach. And we'll have blockers reading and setters will be setting. So I can't emphasize enough in all of these skills how important those reading factors are. So blockers, middles, we may not be wanting them to jump at all times during that because they'll get a lot of jumps once we begin the play part of practice and getting into some small-sided games and then getting into 6-on-6. So in that, maybe they're just reading and making a first move or footwork left or right. Our middles will sometimes just stand there and they're just talking about what they see. Were the setter's hands low? Where was she arching? Were her hands super high? Maybe she's going to something quick close to her. So all on one court, we can have blockers, passers, setters. Our libros will even get involved as a defender and also trying to read the setter. Maybe that's where a setter can be working on dumping and the libero can work on that read as well. So that's all happening in skill-based work, but all on one court,
Gotcha.
all in one space. And so those are things we do every day in our gym. Sometimes we split up on 2 or 3 courts, but a lot of times when we're on the road, it's for sure just one.
Awesome. All right. So I like this. This is a fun question coming up here. How important is it to train your setters and your team to use hand setting signals? And then along with that, how does a team develop common language on particular sets? And how difficult is it to go from team to team and situation to situation to try to recreate that common language of what everybody's calling the same set, especially in the international game, but even in the high school or club or national team, when people are coming from different programs, you got to put it all back together. Do you use, what hand signals do you use and how important do you think that is in developing a setter? And how do you guys make that happen quickly?
Yeah, I laugh because a lot of times when our setters play overseas, they don't speak the language of the team that they're playing with, or they'll play in Italy with an Italian coach, but there's a Brazilian, a Serbian, a Dutch person, and maybe someone from China on their team. And so English is a blessing. If a coach speaks English, that's great. So the first thing that I think about is you could be saying like sandwich, but if you say it and you're running the route you're supposed to run and you're saying it with some urgency, I'll know what you're running. So even though we call it a go and you may call it a 4, I know what you might be running. And now that's at the highest level, but they're saying things in all different languages. Even when they come back to our gym, they may be calling things different things. It's also really important, I think, and especially as we get younger, to keep the offenses really simple. And that may be that maybe there's some different ideas of how to run an offense, and we can talk about that a lot, but we try to be really simple and be just really good at these simple things. That's also going to help when we get our athletes back. We may only have 2 weeks of training before the Olympic Games next year together as a Team USA team. So if I tried to implement each person having 7 different things they had to be good at as a route as an attacker, we probably would be good at none of them. But if we tried to be good at just a bick and a go for an outside hitter, then we could probably get really, really good at these two things. And same with the middle. Maybe there's 3 things I'm going to ask them to be awesome at. But if I start to have 7 different things a middle needs to be good at, that's going to be really tough. For setters, the hand signal is one part of it. So if it's like this for a gap or something, or like a go, whatever it might be, the hand signal is one thing, but it's really important to make eye contact and even walk over. If you have time between the serve, walk over if you're close to that hitter, put your hand on their shoulder and talk through like, hey, you're gonna run a go. And if there's confusion, you'll know right then, like that girl doesn't know what a go is, maybe set somebody else and just clear it up later. But that is going to be so important to know that connection between setter and hitter. I think I was a sophomore in high school when my first coach told me to go do that and go and actually talk to every hitter before the serve. And I think things were super slow. I think we did regular scoring at that point. It was like a really slow game that I had time to like run over there and talk to 3 people. But I think that's really big. The more we can be communicating and kind of together on that, the better we'll be.
Awesome. No, I like it. So the last thing, and I'll kind of plug this for both our region and yourself, is I didn't talk about at the beginning of the show that you are also highly involved in the high performance pipeline as well. And Bill Doyle and myself run the Jiva side of the high performance program on the regional level. And I wonder if you could just take a minute or two to speak on your definition and your idea of that path to the podium, high performance, and where that falls into the Olympic pipeline, and kind of how the regions are a part of that as well.
Yeah, no, it's something I'm super, super proud of. And I'm new to the full-time role, though I've gotten a chance to coach for, since 2007, I think, in all the different levels within high performance. I come from the Great Lakes region, so I know a lot about the different regions. But the really cool part about being part of USA, whether that's with Jiva, whatever region, or with the Team USA, the national region, is we don't get to have the athletes in no part of our game all year round. The really cool part for me, and that's on our national team, that's on our youth team, the select A1, the region with Jiva, is we get a chance to try to align all the things that we're doing as athletes come and join us, whether that's for a couple days, a couple times a year, but we get a chance to infect them with some concepts so that if you learn throughout your time as a youth or a junior volleyball player, each year, now those are going to accumulate into some really cool lessons that you can kind of take. My hope is not that you're going to develop into this amazing volleyball player in 5 days in a camp, but that you're going to learn something there that you're going to take to your club, you're going to take to your college, to your high school team, and then continue to develop those 200 days you're going to spend there, and then come back to us even more fully formed, and we're going to give more maybe outside the box ideas or a different way of looking at the game. There are some different rules that come into play, whether it's in high school, club, or international. So teaching and learning about the game that way. Also, once the level, hopefully the whole idea of what we're trying to do is put the best athletes from around the country with the best athletes around the country and against some of the best competition that we can. That's just going to make, anytime we have 2 swords sharpening against each other, we're going to make both of them sharper. And so if we can continue to do that, the regions are crucial in helping us identify those athletes, because you're going to know people in your region, the athletes in your region, the best. And for us to be able to partner with the regions and learn how to get nationally the best from the Jiva and the best from SoCal and Lone Star all in one place, that's what I'm really passionate about, is trying to get these athletes together more often. We have so many examples of women on our team that got their first thought that they could be an Olympian someday happened in a high performance community in some way, which is really, really cool. And for them, it's a really special thing to get to wear the flag on your jersey. And I remember crying the first time I got my USA jersey, and it's such a special moment to be part of as a kid, but as an adult, any of it, as a coach for sure. So we can expect a lot of change, a lot of things we're trying to do better. This pandemic has put us all on pause in ways that we're having to relook at how we manage things and do things. And so we can expect some change from us as we continue to try to grow. As athletes are always trying to get better, so are we. But yeah, I'm really excited to be part of that as well.
Awesome. No, well said. I appreciate it. So here you go. Another great question just came up too, is June 7th, the Iron Hammer's coming out. Are you watching?
Yeah, I will watch. Yeah, so Jenny, so she's the coach of China right now, Long Ping. I know her as Jenny. So she was our coach for the national team leading into the 2008 Beijing Olympics. And that was right as I was graduating college. And I went on to train under her. That's when we trained in Colorado Springs. And so I was a setter under Jenny and hoping to become a coach. So I asked her a ton of questions, and Jenny is a very, very tactical, wonderful coach. And I learned a lot from her. And she is, for those that don't know, she is like the Michael Jordan of China in volleyball, and has paparazzi everywhere, and such a big deal. And I'm thrilled to compete against her now as a coach and a female coach, and someone that I can look up to a lot. But really different philosophies and things that are training technically, but tactically she's one of the best in the world and reigning Olympic champion. So I'm excited.
Awesome.
I'll definitely be watching.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So what I'll do now is we are going to transition to our AVCA Jiva Regional Award winners.
Awesome.
And we're going to come back to you to give some final thoughts and final feedback, and other ways we can get involved, and what we should kind of do next with our setters and closing remarks. And Bill, I'll let you do that as well. But Bill, right?
Thank you.
Do you have anything you want to kind of say to these award winners, and kind of how the region is proud of what they've accomplished so far?
Yeah, I think I'd like to say congratulations first of all. It's a did I lose you? Am I still there?
No, Erin is putting up the slides.
Okay, Erin's doing slides. Okay, cool. Something went crazy. Yeah, congratulations. I mean, it's a difficult season, a difficult time, and difficult choices, but we work hard to do the best we can with it. I hope that people understand that this AVCA Awards is part of a partnership we have with the AVCA, and they send us lots of content. They provide lots of opportunities for us to not only award coaches, but to train coaches and things like that. So congratulations, and have a social self cocktail, or whatever they call them.
Fair enough. Cheers to all of you. Again, thank you from Jiva. And without further ado, here are our award winners. Our first award winner for Club Director of the Year is Tony Mulgrave. Tony Mulgrave. Actually, I got to move this over so I can read this. There we go. All right, Tony Mulgrave, Club Director of the Year. Tony is dedicated to helping create a positive but hardworking environment for each athlete, regardless of their age or level. I will remind you, each of these awards were nominated by you, our members of Jiva, and they will all be pushed forward to the national recognition level after this regional level. This is the first time they're knowing this too. So hopefully, Tony, you're listening. Great job. Our next award winner is for Boys Coach of the Year. Many of you know him. That's Rick Cole. Rick Cole got a nice nomination, says, where to start. Rick spends endless time in reviewing videos to help the boys maintain a positive outlook on life, as well as positive feedback on and off the court. Congratulations, Rick. Our next award winner for Coach of the Year for the girls' side, Heather Stout. Heather works hard to learn and grow her the sport. She consistently shares ideas and concepts with coaches at every level to not only help herself, but openly willing to help and support others. Our next award winner is for a new award, the Innovation Award. And this is Jeff Yelasanis, the Innovation Award. Jeff didn't miss a beat when we announced practices were canceled due to COVID. He immediately started Zoom practices on his own. He put it into motion, a mindset training and positive thinking training along with his tough workouts. And last but certainly not least, and near and dear to our hearts, Erin Laban, the first ever in the country Networks Award winner. For those of you that don't know, she had to put together her own slide right here. So congratulations, Erin, on working on this award. Time and time again, Erin goes above and beyond for the region and local clubs for tournament photography, social media engagement, and Jiva's new educational Facebook Live sessions you're hearing right now. So thank you, Erin. Thank you to the rest of you, Tony, Rick, Heather, Jeff, and Erin again. Thank you again for such an outstanding job you've done this season and seasons throughout, and all the great stuff you're going to do, in the rest of your coaching time. Jiva thanks you. The ABCA thanks you. USAV and your players and clubs thank you without a doubt. It's been a great session. Erin and Bill, thank you so much for joining us. Erin behind the scenes, Facebook Live people, you have been wonderful. Erin, I'll open it to you for any last words of wisdom or any discussion or any final thoughts.
Yeah, I'm just really grateful to have been on with you guys, and thanks for having me. You guys can reach me anytime. My email is just erin.virtue@usav.org. If there's questions about anything we talked about today, how our team is doing, high performance, or anything with the women's national team, happy to field any of those types of questions at all. But really, really excited. You guys are doing a great job with some things like this. Sorry that we went long. Hopefully it was interesting. And yeah, happy to kind of pause there, but thanks for having me.
No, you've been awesome. Thank you again for everything you do. We appreciate it. Facebook Live, we love you. You guys did awesome today with your questions. Thank you for all your time and effort. This has been another great episode of Jiva Live. Thank you.